Welcome back to another episode. Today I want to take a closer look at Nvidia because Nvidia did really showcase some amazing things at GTC Paris. And let me say there are some interesting things for investors like Coreweave, like Nebius, and you let me know in the comments below after I talk about it if you think this is bullish or bearish for some of these AI infrastructure players, as again, it was pretty wild. So let's take a closer look in today's episode. All right, so we can see Nvidia right now is up about down about 0.78% on the day and up about 0.43% after hours. We do have earnings that just came out. Oracle just reported earnings. The stock is up roughly 7.8% today. I might do another video later tonight if you guys want me to on talking about Oracle and GitLab. So GitLab did report last night. The stock was down roughly 10%. I talked a little bit about it during the live stream, but if you guys want a full analysis on this, first too long don't watch. I think GitLab is more of an opportunity right now. I'm still very much bullish on this company. I didn't think there was anything scary for investors. Now let's go back into Nvidia, right? So today, this episode, I'm gonna be using finchat.io. I want to look at kind of the Q&A transcript here from the GTC Paris financial analyst Q&A. And if you want to get more information like this, make sure to check out finchat.io/Jose for 15% off, 2 weeks free without even using a credit card. I use them for charting, for AI solutions, and for a lot of screeners and other types of metrics and financial products. So I highlighted this stuff from GTC Paris, and one of the things that came out a lot, or I've been seeing on Twitter, is Jensen did mention that quantum is at an inflection point. And this is actually very different from what he has said in the past, right? In the past, we've seen that Jensen has talked about quantum being maybe a little bit longer into the future, so maybe even some decades. But so someone in the Q&A asked him about this in the financial sit down, and he mentions, yes, appreciate it. All of my feelings about quantum is consistent with the past. However, my feelings about quantum classical is very different. And I think that the entire industry is now recognizing that quantum classical is the way to go. It's not about a standalone quantum computer. It's about a quantum computer connected to a GPU supercomputer to do all of the controls, to do all the error correction. So that is a big difference between quantum computing and classical computing. And classical computing, or this hybrid quantum classical computing, is, like he mentions, the use of quantum computing with kind of classical supercomputers. This is something he has worked and Nvidia has worked with the past, right? We have kind of their CUDA-Q, and they have a lot of solutions that were once possible with the Hopper that are now possible with the Blackwell architecture. So he mentions there is no changes there. So I wanted to bring that one up there. The other thing that, continuing here, he also mentions that quantum computing classic hybrid is gaining a lot of momentum right now. And I think everybody's getting excited. So we can kind of see it being kind of, 2 or 3 years out, doing some real work. But in the meantime, what I said is true. So he doubles down that he still believes traditional quantum computing is still pretty far away. Now, there are some quantum lovers out there. And again, there's probably different phases of quantum computing, different modes. But the one Jensen is talking about, he believes is still some time off. Next, I want to share some other highlights that they have. So one of the topics in discussion has always been the Chinese market, right? And right now, Nvidia does mention that their data center revenue in China is forecasted to be 0 from now on. So any guidance that the company has given us is 0. Any positive reaction to the Chinese market will be additive to any form of guidance. So right now, what we have talked about in this channel is Chinese revenue is now no longer a headwind, it's more of a tailwind. The other thing that we hear a lot about the Chinese market is this a competition, or does Huawei, more importantly, is it a competitor to the United States, and is it a competitor to Nvidia? So they mentioned that China is several years behind us. But for China, that's okay. The reason for that is because their power is so cheap. Not because China is willing to accept less. Their power is cheap, and when power is cheap, you can just use more chips. So in their case, they mentioned that for Nvidia, their chips are about 4 to 5 times more power efficient. But because China energy is so cheap and they have an abundance of it, they can just use 5 times more chips and it'll be a-okay. Here in the United States, that wouldn't fly, right? Because you're already building these massive 100 megawatts data centers, these potentially eventually gigawatt data centers. And if their chips were 5 times more power hungry, we wouldn't have the capacity to be running it. So, right, NVIDIA has a problem of, not a problem, but has to continue to provide better power efficiency where players in China don't have that thing to innovate because at the moment power is so cheap. So one thing to kind of understand why NVIDIA believes there is a threat in China, but more for the chips in China, not chips moving out of China, right? So they don't consider Huawei a threat outside of China, only in China, because they don't have to worry too much about powers. There was one more thing here that that they talk about. Actually, two more things. One was about the NVLink, and NVLink is that kind of ASIC solution that they provide. So Jensen mentions, I believe most of ASIC solutions are going to get canceled. However, many of them have approached us about using NVLink, and they're important people to him. You know, the person who's asking is not a stranger. They're probably obviously one of those cloud server providers, as there's only certain people that can build ASICs, and they're spending a lot of money. So these people that are coming up to Jensen saying, look, we standardized everything on here. If we had NVLink, we could put our CPU in it, say we could just use the same chassis and extend it, and we'll buy everything else from you, aka NVIDIA. So it seems like there is some strong demand for NVLink from some of these cloud server providers. There are, talking about CPUs, some of the true CPU players, I don't know who could it be. Could it be, we know someone who has a massive CPU is Graviton, so Amazon. Microsoft also has the Cobalt. Everybody has their own CPU, but I'm going to guess the one that's probably talking to them is either going to be Microsoft or Amazon. I don't think it's going to be Google, as Google is doing really well with the TPU, but I think it might be one of the other players, Amazon. It could be Amazon. It could actually even be Oracle, right? Oracle does use a lot of kind of like the Ampere and other based solutions. So there's a lot of ways around there, but NVLink, the only reason they released it is because they have potential customers. And that's all I have here from their transcript. Now I want to talk a little bit about this product, Nvidia DGX Cloud Lepton. And this is what I find to maybe be a threat to certain companies like Nebius. So Nebius was down about 4%, 3.6%. I actually believe this might actually be bullish for companies like Coreweave instead. And I'll explain a little bit more. So DGX Cloud Lepton. The easiest way to think about it is exactly how Jensen broke it down. It's the Uber of data centers. So let's say you are an AI company and you need some form of cloud AI infrastructure. You kind of go to this, again, I'm going to simplify it. You go to this Lepton app and you say, I'm looking for X amount of compute. Who has it available? And it's going to give you all these platforms, all these companies that have it available for you. Now, they're doing this in Europe. So let's kind of look at it. So NVIDIA today announced the expansion of NVIDIA DGX Cloud Lepton, an AI platform featuring a global compute marketplace that connects developers building agentic and physical AI applications with GPUs now available from growing networks of cloud providers. They already have some massive behemoths. AWS and Microsoft Azure will be the first large-scale cloud providers to participate in DGX Cloud Lepton. These companies joined CoreWeave, Cruiser, Firmserve, Foxconn, GMA Cloud, Lambda, and Yoda data services in the marketplace. DGX Lepton is connecting Europe's developers to global AI infrastructure, said Jensen. So first, this is happening in a market where, for example, I think this form of Lepton AI, NVIDIA's only going to release, or the partners that are really going to use it are only going to be used in places that don't have too much data center solutions. Or AI infrastructure. For example, here in the United States, you have all these massive cloud server providers globally all over. So I think Microsoft and Amazon, who are some of the players here, are only going to do this participation in places where there is not enough AI infrastructure computation. A perfect example is Europe right now, right? Europe doesn't have that much AI data centers like United States. So what happens here is if I'm a European, I can probably go into the Lepton app, again, simplifying it, go into this Lepton app and saying, I need some form of compute. And now I will be able to see all these customers like Coreweave, who has a lot of capacity here in the United States. They don't have that much in Europe, but it now opens up the market for them in Europe. AWS, right? They have a lot of data centers in there, but they might also have other capacity elsewhere. So this does create form of a competitive pressure, in my opinion, for maybe some of the startups that are growing there, right? You have your Nebius, right, who is really focusing on developing AI infrastructure there. But now they have this marketplace created by Nvidia that might kind of hurt them in the short term of things, right? I do believe it's eventually will be fine. I think right now it's just that the market is so underserved that Nvidia wants to make sure there's plenty and plenty of capacity available to such an underserved market. I wonder how things will change as kind of some of these regions build up their AI infrastructure. But I do believe at the moment it could create some pressure into some of these companies. And again, I think they're only going to be used in areas and regions that right now do not have that much type of capacity built up. Now you have this new marketplace, and obviously with marketplace, there also tends to be some form of pricing wars if there's too many people in there. So something to consider, right? So definitely not a complete bearish case for Nebius. It was interesting that Nebius was not part of it. Maybe the main reason is they do have kind of their internal infrastructure already a lot in Europe, but that was pretty wild to see. And it was pretty cool to see Coreweave in it, right? Because they don't have much infrastructure in Europe, but now they will have the ability to serve that part of the region. Now, continuing here, right? NVIDIA wants to make sure that you have as much AI capacity as possible. So Mistral, which is an open source large language model company, also announced that now they are entering into the cloud. So during this GTC event, NVIDIA announced that they're partnering up with Mistral to build Mistral Cloud. So through this journey, Mistral has kind of focused on building AI open models. And through this journey, however, they realized that to truly democratize AI, it will require us to not just build open models and frontier AI products, but to provide everyone across the world the tools and environments to do so themselves from infrastructure up. And particularly, we believe that the build out and ownership of AI infrastructure should not be restricted to 2 or 3 powerful companies, but rather be independent and self-determined. Frontier AI should be in your hands, and in the service of the mission, we are proud to announce the latest addition to our Mistral AI portfolio of offerings, Mistral Compute. Mistral Compute is a new AI infrastructure offering that will provide customers a private integrated stack GPUs, orchestration APIs products, and so on and so forth. Mistral Compute empowers sovereigns, companies, and research institutions to completely reimagine the way they build their AI stack, and they kind of give you the different ways that they can do it. As a premier NVIDIA partner, Mistral Compute will offer the latest NVIDIA reference architectures with availability of tens of thousands of GPUs and rapid expansions in the coming years. So this is just another new customer that's going to be spending billions of dollars on NVIDIA GPUs appearing out of nowhere because the demand for AI is so high. So to me, this GTC, while we didn't see anything revolutionary in forms of products, I do believe we saw a lot of, actually Lepton was pretty insane. We did get a lot of updates. And to me, again, I want to say Lepton might create some headwind pressure for companies like Nebius. I have to think about it a little bit more. But obviously, if you now are opening up a market to more competitors, there is going to be some pricing war. We also saw some big behemoths there like AWS and Microsoft that have plenty of capacity or massive AI infrastructure. So Lepton is pretty interesting. It's definitely good for NVIDIA. It allows them to be able to truly monitor all these forms of AI workloads. It's really good for the end consumer because now they have the availability of a lot of GPUs wherever they can get it. I'm not too sure how it will be for the partners within the system, right? Because now you're competing in this marketplace. But interesting way to go about it, and it's just Nvidia continuing to be a monster. So that the Mistral compute and the overall transcript provided a lot of great information. And again, make sure to check out finchat.io/Jose for that special offer, 15% off, 2 weeks free, no credit cards needed. Take care, have a good day, and see you all next time.